Okay, I remembered how to move it up. This is my first video of the year, so I'm still getting used to it. Okay, now when signs are different, what do? You keep whatever sign is greater, and then you subtract. You subtract the integers. So in number 1, I know I have more negative integers. I have 14 negative and 7 positive. I know I have more negatives, so right away, I know my answer is going to be a negative, and then I subtract. 14 minus 7 is 7. Okay, so you look at whatever sign is greater, keep it, and then take the difference of the two numbers, 14 and 7. All right, look at number 2. Remember, there's no subtraction. You have a negative 50. So you have a positive 8 and a negative 50. Do I have more positives or more negatives? I have more negatives. So I know my sign is negative, and then you take the difference of the integers. 50 minus 8 is 42. So my answer here is negative 42. So signs are different, take the difference. Look at number 3. You have 52 positive integers and 30 negative integers. Do you have more positives or negatives? You have more positives. So I'm going to keep a positive sign and take the difference of 52 and 30, which is 22. So my answer here is going to be 22. All right, look at number 4 on your paper while I move this up. Now, right away, you know that you have more positive integers. So my answer is going to be positive, and now you take the difference of the two numbers. So it's going to be a positive 32. Okay? Now, one thing I want you to notice over here, what I wrote up here in bold for you to see, and this is really important, is when you take the difference of those numbers in your head, you may not think about it, but you're really taking that big number minus the small number. We already know about the signs. It's either going to be more positives or more negatives. And then what do? We take the difference by subtracting the big number minus the small number. Always, regardless of the sign. Same thing with fractions, and I think that's where students kind of go wrong. So if you look at when we're doing fractions, the rules are the same. If the signs are the same, we're going to add the fractions, and we're going to keep the same sign. Keep whatever sign. So they're both positive, so I'm going to add them, and I'm going to keep that same sign. Now, let's remember when you have fractions, okay? What do? Well, I know I'm adding, we have to have a common denominator. So over here, I know my denominator is going to be 20. 4 goes into 25 times. You bring that 5 up. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 goes into 24 times. You bring that 4 up. 1 times 4 is 4. I'm not spending a lot of time on equivalent fractions because you should have a good understanding of how to do that. So if you're struggling, come see me in tutoring. But this is just a refresher on how to add and subtract fractions. All right, so now that we have that common denominator, we're going to add our numerators, our numerators, 10 and 4 to get 14 over 20. And then I add 7 and 8, which is 15. Now, this is not the proper form I want it in. Always, always, always reduce your fraction. Always. Don't ask me, hey, Ms. Hartman, do we need to reduce your fraction? Yes, 100% of the time. So I'm going to reduce that. So I'm going to get 7 over 10. So my final answer is 15 and 7/10. Okay? Now, it's the same thing if you have two negatives. I have a negative and a negative, so I'm going to add them, but I keep the same sign. So right away, I know my answer is negative. And I'm going to keep that there to remind myself, I better put that negative or she's going to count it wrong. You bet I am. So we're going to take 2 and 4/5, and I know my rule is to add. So what do? I keep the same sign. 35. And then 7. 4 times 7 is 28. 7 goes into 35 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And my rule is I add the numerators. So I get 38 over 35. And I add 17 and 2, which is 19. And then I say, oh no, this is not right form. This is an improper fraction. So what does this mean? It means we have one whole number in here. 38 over 35. So 35 goes into 38 one whole time. There's one whole number hidden. So I'm going to take that 1 and add it to that 19 to get 20, right? And And so then, if you've taken that 35 over here, then you have 3 left. So I have 3 over 35, remembering that my sign is going to be negative. So that is my final answer, okay? Now, what happens when signs are different? It's the same thing when you're looking at those integers that we talked about up above. When the signs are different, you take whatever sign is greater, whatever sign is greater, and keep, if signs are different, we subtract, and we keep whatever sign is greater. Whatever sign is greater. I'm not good at editing, or else I would edit that and make this video shorter, but I'm not good at editing. Okay, so look at number 1. Do I have more positives or negatives? I have more negatives. So right away, I know my answer is negative. Now I'm going to forget about it. Now remember that rule up above. We said when our signs are different, automatically you always take the big number minus the small number. So 15 and 2/5 is bigger, so I'm going to take 15 and 2/5, and I'm going to subtract 9 and 2/9. Forget about the sign. We already said it's negative. So we're going to put it there to remind myself, whatever happens, I'm keeping that sign. Now, common denominator. So 9, I get 18 up here, 5, I get 10 up here. And now because I'm subtracting, I subtract. 18 minus 10 is 8 over 45. 15 minus 9 is 6. I can't reduce, but don't forget, you got to put that 6 and 8 over 45 here because we know that sign's negative, okay? All right, let's do another one, and then we can do some on our own. All right, so here we go. I know that I've got more negatives. So again, I'm going to keep the sign that's greater, more negatives. And now I'm taking the big number, always the big number minus the small number. I already know that it's negative. So 32 and 3/4 minus 14 and 1/3. The signs are different, so you take the difference. All right, common denominator. Here we go. All right, 9 minus 4 is 5 over 12. 32 minus 14 is 18. 18 and 5/12. So over here I have negative 18 and 5/12. I can't reduce. Okay, final answer. I said we were going to do just one more, but I lied. We're going to do, let's do number 4. Okay, so on number 4, I have more positives. So right away, I know that my answer is positive. So I'm going to keep that sign just to remind myself. I don't really need it. It's understood. If you don't have to have that positive in front. It's always understood for an integer to be positive, even if you don't write that positive. But I know my answer is positive, so I'm going to keep it. And now what do? We always take the big number minus the small number. And because signs are different, that's a 4. And because the signs are different, we take the difference. So, common denominator, 5, 14, and 20. All right, now I want you to circle this one, okay? Now look at this. When you're subtracting, you always have to have the bigger number up top. But I can't do 14 minus 20 because that would give me a negative numerator, and we already have it established that this rational number is going to be positive. So I can't have a negative numerator. So I need to get this number to be bigger. Well, how do I do that? I have to borrow. I'm going to borrow from this guy. So 32, I just need 1. So instead of making this 32, I'm going to make it 31 and 35 over 35. Why did I choose 35 over 35? Because I want my numerator to be the same. So 31 and 35 over 35 is the same thing as 32, okay? So now I'm going to borrow 35 of these guys, and I'm going to add it to 14, which gives me 49. Now I have that bigger numerator. So now I'm going to do 49 minus 20 is 29 over 35, and I get 31 minus 16, which is 15. I know my answer is positive, so my final answer is 15 and 29 over 35, okay? So I think you did that last year, but it's always a good reminder. So if you're struggling with fractions, please come and see me for tutoring, because this is going to be a skill that we're going to do all year long. And then we will do some examples together in class.